Okay guys, so now we're going to discuss on how to self-assess your hips. Okay, so our hips has a lot to do with our pelvic tilt. So to start on with that one, from a side angle, this is how it looks. So I'm straightening out my knees and my hips. Try practicing that pelvic tilt first, standing up. So as you can see, I'm practicing my pelvic tilt. I'm just relying around my hips and my lower back, my midsection to produce that movement. My knees, my shoulders are not moving. So it's just my hips that's producing that movement. Then now what I want you to do is finding your neutral spine. Everyone's neutral spine will be different depending on what your body can do. Best way or simplest way, safest way to find it is try shifting your hips back, shifting it forward, then try to find that in between of those movements. So for me, this is my hips moving forward, this is my hips moving back, this would be my neutral. Okay, so first is find your neutral. Try doing a couple of breaths onto that position, so breathing in and out. You just need to do around 5 to 10. Once you can breathe and teach your body to get used to being in that position, first thing that you would do is testing out the movement of your hips. So you may place one hand against the wall. Then what you would do from there is flexing your hip. So this is what we call flexion. Okay, so check on how high you can bring this knee up without the need to hyperextend your back or move that way. So maintaining that neutral spine, lift it up. So that would be your active range. Now we have tested flexion. Next thing that we're going to do is go to extension, which is that way. So even doing this movement, if you do it nice and slowly, it can also be a form of your warming up for the hips. You can even try not to bend your knee too much. Just practicing flexion and extension. So remember this one, everything stays stable above my hips, and my standing leg should always stay straight, not moving, or just movement but on a very minimal extent, but most of the movement is coming from the hips. Okay, so doing between 15 to 30 repetitions of these leg swings here. Next thing is our hips ability to rotate out and its ability to rotate in. Okay, so test yourself. If I'm facing forward, okay, I'm just going to hold on to something to make sure that I don't lose my balance. So I may hold on to a chair, going for that hip flexion, then test it out on how far you can rotate your hips out. So rotating your hips out, this is your hip joint, it is rotating out. Okay, so this is my external rotation or rotating out to make it simpler, and this is my internal rotation or rotating in. So once I rotate in, my hips do go that way, therefore it produces this sort of movement. Okay, so if this movement is too much for you to handle, you can reduce the range, or even placing this foot onto the floor, then just rotate your hip out, rotate your hip in. Okay, even that movement can be a good way to warm up the hip joint. So either doing it this way or this way, rotating out, rotating in, rotating out, rotating in. Okay, this is how you would assess your hips from a standing up position. Now to combine those 4 movements, you can just simply, again, hold against the wall, flexing your hips, rotating your hips out this way. So earlier on, we're doing it this way, but there's another movement that our hips can access to, which is a part of that, being able to rotate out. Then from there, rotating it in. So once I rotate in, my inner thighs, this part of my thigh, would face down towards the floor as my heel goes up towards the ceiling. And from there, I'm pushing my heel further back. So I bring both legs together. So you can see here, it goes again to that hip extension. And from that position, I can either return down to the floor, repeat that same cycle, or reverse that movement to be a bit more creative and just add a bit more fun onto our movement. So from here, rotating it in, rotate out, and bring it back in. How it looks once you do it smoothly, rotating out, rotating in, hip extension, bringing both legs together, and repeating the same thing. Okay, so how it looks now from a front angle. So holding it to something, lifting that knee up, hip flexion, rotating out, rotating it in. My heel is trying to reach that mirror behind me. Then hip extension, bringing both legs together. And then reverse that whole movement there. Okay, so rotating it in, rotating it out, flexion. So this hip, the one that's standing, is constantly facing forward. Let's do that movement, rotating it in, pushing your heel back, bringing both legs together. Okay, so that's how you would do the rotational components and flexion extension of the hip. Next thing that we will discuss is knees and ankles. So a way to assess that one, just sitting onto the floor, holding your thigh, holding your knee, then try on how much you can flex your ankle and flexing it this way. So this is what we call the plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, or to make it simple, toes towards you, toes away from you. Toes towards you and away from you. Front angle, it'll look like this. You can also move our ankles to our toes facing in and facing out. Okay, so we can do toes towards you, away from you, in and out. Okay, then once you combine those four movements, you can actually create one big circle using your ankles. Okay, so for the hips that we have done earlier, do again between 5 to 15 repetitions, 5 to 15 circles as well, reverse, doing it on both sides. Okay, next one would be for the knee. For the knee, from a 45-degree angle, so you can see it clearly, you can extend, you can flex or bend, extend and bend, extend and bend. And there's a creative way that you can combine ankles and knees at the same time. So what you would do first, lifting your heel up, rotate your toes in together with your ankles, extending your knee, rotate your toes out, then bending your knee. This is how it looks. Okay, only do the movement that your body allows you to do. Don't go moving to a position that gives you pain or discomfort. From a side angle, it'll look like this. So, rotating my toes in or out, extend, rotate it in, then bend. 45-degree angle, toes out, extend, toes in, bend. Doing it as well on the other side. Okay. So again, 5 to 15 repetitions of that one. That is for the knees and hips with some ankle stuff. Okay, let me know how it goes.